So what happened is, if you don't know, my husband Peter and I are foster parents to adoption. And so we had these kids show up at our house, brothers, who were living in two separate placements, and they came to live with us in Redfern in Sydney. And it's really strange because all of a sudden, I had to do all these parent things, and I had never had children before, and neither had Peter. And so you sort of rock up to the school, and you say, well, it was a Friday, and I was like, well, this child has come to live with me, and we need to enroll this child in your school. But what happened was that Peter and I had both showed up, and we were both sort of in dress shirts. And so the headmistress sort of saw us. If you don't know Darlington Public School, and we've met people from Fiji that went there, by the way. If you don't know Darlington Public School, it's a very multicultural inter-city school. And so it was, Colleen was very confused why these, sort of well-dressed sort of, men in black sort of looking fellows were waiting to talk to her. And she was in her office she thought she was getting audited by the Department of Education, so she was trying to hide things and rearrange things and blah, 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 blah. And then we finally came in and she was said, oh, we told her what we did, and she was like, oh, let out a big sigh of relief. So we weren't the auditors, we weren't going to take away their funding. And then one of the things that I had to learn, of course, was how to make school lunches for the kids, and I'm American, if you can't tell from my accent. And so everyone was like, well, Vegemite sandwiches. So in America, we have peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Now, peanut butter is or peanut paste is really thick, and so you smear a ton of it on, right? And then you put on some jelly, and you put a lot of that as well, and it's just beautiful, sweet treat. And so I had been doing the Vegemite and cheese, and I had been spreading the Vegemite like peanut butter and sending my kids to school. And so I showed up to the school, and by now Colleen, the headmistress, knew that I wasn't, an auditor, that I was actually just a parent at the school. And she said to me, Matt, I need to have a word to you. There's something that's very serious that I need to talk to you about. And I thought, oh no, what happened? Did one of the kids do something wrong? Are we in trouble? And she said, well, I have to tell you that Michael has been throwing his lunch away every day and going to the canteen and eating the lunches that we provided for kids that don't get sent to school with lunches. We have a special program for kids whose parents weren't able to look after their lunches in the morning, and so Michael's been eating those sandwiches, and I was like, oh. I said, but I don't understand. I'm putting these Vegemite sandwiches in his lunchbox every day and other tasty treats. And she said, well, he's throwing them in the bin, and quite frankly, Matt, I would too. And she then proceeded to tell me how to thinly spread the Vegemite onto the bread. And so I started to do that, and Michael started to eat his sandwiches. And then the very last thing about when we first showed up to the school was that Michael brought home, so we started in the middle of term 2, right? So it was at the end of the semester, so maybe 3 weeks before the end of the first semester. And Michael brought home this sort of work package, of all the artwork and, and the maths and all that sort of stuff in the folder. And on the front of the folder, there was Michael with this little kid, who I had never seen before. And I was like, who the hell's this guy? He said, oh, that's my buddy, Peter Wapke. He's in the preschool. And I was like, oh, okay. And it was at that point that I realized that we actually hadn't really engaged with the school at all and didn't actually know who any of the parents were or any of the children. And so I made a point. I said, well, can you introduce me to Peter's parents? Because Michael also said, oh, Peter's older brother Stephen is in my class. So I said, oh, well, we should probably meet these people. And so Michael took me to the playground and introduced me to Rosemary Fisher, who became a really good friend of mine. Sadly, she's passed on, so rest in peace, Rosemary. But Rosemary became my best friend, and she became a co-parent for me. She was the person that I could go to because I had no idea what the hell I was doing. She had 2 boys that were the same age. she and her husband became really, really great friends with us, and she was like my rock. She just helped me through everything as a parent. And one of the things, perspective-wise, when you have kids and there's two dads in the family, is people are a bit confused sometimes, and they're like, so, where's the mom? Or, like, what's going on here? Like, blah, 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 blah. And so Rosemary, of course, knew everything. She knew my whole story. I mean, I like cried over a cup of tea like every day with her. We mutually cried about, being parents. And so she told me after about 6 months at the school that like all the gossipy parents were trying to find out what the story was about our boys and who I was, and where was the mom, and who's that other guy, and all this sort of stuff. And Rosemary looked at Mary Ellen and she went, I've never thought to ask them. And that was very kind of her. She basically was saying, it's none of your damn business, but I'm going to be polite about it. And Mary Ellen shut up. And so that was the story about